Denver Broncos cornerback Riley Moss is not trending towards playing on Sunday against the Indianapolis Colts. And if he is going to miss the game, should it be Kris Abrams-Draine that gets the start, or Damari Mathis, or veteran Levi Wallace? We'll make the case here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, Broncos Country? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you know it is your team every day. Thank you so much to all the everydayers and first listeners out there in Broncos Country who tune in whenever and wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate you so much. We got you covered every single day, all year long, for all things that you need to know covering the Denver Broncos. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports. You can check out my written work over there, milehighsports.com. Joined as always by Sayre Bedinger, site expert, predominantlyorange.com, and also a writer over there at NFL Spin Zone, spinning up some of the takes that may make your fan base a little angry there. He's got weekly picks over there. You can check it out as well. And obviously here on today's episode of the show, Broncos Country, it's our final preview before Sunday's big matchup against the Indianapolis Colts. We'll wrap things up by talking about our bold predictions, what we think could happen that could be a little bit of a surprise in Sunday's game. We'll talk about why the Broncos secondary against the Colts wide receiver group will be the one matchup that defines the outcome of Sunday's game, alongside some other matchups. But we're going to kick things off by talking about the injury report. Riley Moss trending towards not playing in Sunday's game. You're going to get all that and much more here on today's episode of the show, which is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel. Start the season with big return on FanDuel, where new customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Sayre, my friend, all signs pointing to Riley Moss not playing this week here for the Broncos. Had a chance to be out there at practice. And Wednesday, I was initially surprised seeing Riley with his helmet on during team stretch, jogging, and then stretching with the team. But then he went off to the side field and did not participate in individual or team. Two official on Wednesday and Thursday, 2 official days, DNP at practice. This right here is the ultimate sign he will not play on Sunday against the Colts. So with that said, Sayre, and we can talk about the impact of Riley Moss. We've certainly seen it without a game, but now this means that somebody else is going to have to play outside at cornerback. Denver's got 3 options there.
They do. Obviously, we saw what Levi Wallace brought to the table against the Cleveland Browns. I know that he owned up, Cody, to having what he labeled as the worst game of his life. I know Vance Joseph fell on the sword a little bit as well when he met the media on Thursday, saying if he didn't play a great game, then I didn't call a great game, which is very true. I think we questioned kind of all of that after we saw that performance. And so the question is, like, do you roll with what you did against the Browns, where you benched Wallace and put Kris Abrams-Draine, the rookie who, I mean, I don't remember if he'd been even active for a game before this one, Cody. No. So he gets thrust into the lineup during the most critical situation of the game and responded well. This is interesting because earlier in the season, remember, Pat Surtain suffered a concussion against the Los Angeles Chargers. I think we were a little less worried about him missing a game than now with what we've seen against the Cleveland Browns, obviously, with Riley Moss missing another game. So that's the tricky part of this, is that, of course, you want these guys to get the experience to be able to say, hey, if something does happen, let's say in the playoffs or previous to that, you know, against the Bengals, against the Chiefs, or even this game against the Colts, you want these guys to be able to respond and be able to step into this situation. So if it's me, I am going with Kris Abrams-Draine and saying this is in theme with the entire season, right? We've been rolling with the rookies, Bo Nix, Devon Vele, Troy Franklin getting more involved. Hopefully we'll see more of Audric Estime this week as well. Jonah Ellis, 5 sacks already, 3 straight games with a sack. Let's just keep in theme. Let's get the rookie out there and see what he can do if Riley Moss can't play.
I'm on board with Kris Abrams-Draine getting more playing time. Certainly it accelerates, I think, from where everybody expected him to be. I didn't feel like with the emergence of Riley Moss, it kind of told me that, okay, hey, we might be a year or two away from Kris Abrams-Draine playing more defensive snaps, considering where Riley's at. And certainly I think for him to get thrown in the situation he did, and I can tell you this about Abrams-Draine, this guy's been working so hard all season long. There's been various times where he's been kind of not a scout team player of the week, but because he's not starting, essentially, like he's giving the Broncos offense good looks in practice. You talk about practice player of the week. He's been getting some of those nominations there, and he's just been biding his time, and obviously he's helping now in the kicking game here. So if the rookie plays, then I think that's going to be something to see, which is ironic because his first game he ever played in the NFL came in the preseason against the Colts and in that week 1 preseason opener. And then now it's like regular season. His first game, maybe potentially starting, is going to come here on Sunday. We don't know exactly if that's going to be the case just yet. I think for the reasons you outlined, I think his ability to play off-ball coverage in terms of man zone, his ability to play press coverage, he's got good instincts, good footwork. I think those are things you want to see, especially if you have to go man coverage in certain situations here, whereas I feel like Abrams-Draine is probably more equipped to play man coverage. He's got better speed, I feel like, than Levi Wallace does here. But let's also look at the scenario because it's very possible Levi Wallace starts here again. And I can tell you this, having played corner, I had the worst game of my career when I was a freshman in high school playing corner, right? It's different. But I remember how bad it felt to get burnt or to get beat on a play there. And then the only thing you have there is motivation to go out there. So for Levi, I think having the bye week was a good reset for him. He's a veteran guy. I think we understand what his strengths are. I think in zone, he's probably better off in zone than he is in man coverage. And I think that is something that the Broncos, they were trying to be very aggressive against the Browns, trying to get home. You have to try to be aggressive against the Colts too. So is it only in certain situations where it's like, is Levi going to come in and play in zone? Like, what are you going to do when you go man? How do you protect him when you are going man-to-man coverage? Because the Colts are looking at that Browns tape and they're saying, hey, if number 39 is out there, we are going to attack him. I'm curious to see how Vance Joseph's response will be if it is, in fact, Levi Wallace getting the start here. I know it's something Broncos Country is not going to be a fan of if that's the case, if Wallace does get the start here. But I'm also a big believer in, hey, you had a bad game. Can you bounce back, right? But I do think if he does start, I think the level of patience or the leash will be a little bit shorter if he does struggle and he gives up some big plays.
And I think the Broncos are going to have to make sure that they mix up and disguise coverages quite a bit to help him out because Anthony Richardson, Cody, it feels like, and maybe I'm way off base on this, feels like a quarterback like Anthony Richardson would do much better with, the Broncos going to more zone heavy coverage because he doesn't take a lot of sacks, right? I mean, he's able to extend plays. And so being able to find a soft spot in the zone is kind of where I feel like is going to be his bread and butter in this game. I feel like if you're the Broncos, you really want to force him to have to make tight window throws. You want to speed up the clock, send extra guys, speed up the clock. Don't allow him to get outside the pocket and, extend drives with his legs. But at the same time, playing zone coverage versus playing man, I know they're going to mix it up. I know they're going to do a lot of different things. It just feels to me more so like he would do better against zone coverage because he's a guy who doesn't take a lot of sacks, right? I mean, and that's just the thing. He's a big body, doesn't go down easy, extends plays, can beat you with his legs running the ball. So to me, that's where I would think like even though there's a chance, Levi Wallace starts again, you figure he's probably going to bounce back. I don't think we're going to see a repeat performance from the Broncos defense, what we saw against Cleveland. But at the same time, can you really just go out there and say, hey, that was just a one-time thing. Let's let him bounce back. It's a tough decision for this coaching staff to have to make, but thankfully the bye came at the right time. They had time to think about it, look at the film, and I'll be interested to see what they do.
Well, and also I'd say I don't know if Vance necessarily likes putting rookies in and giving them a lot of playing time early on. I mean, you go back to what was it, Isaac Yiadom, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think that was Isaac Yiadom. I don't think it was. No, it wasn't Yiadom. Who was it that was a rookie corner? I think it had to have been. Who was the rookie corner that Denver had when Vance was the head coach? They had a couple guys in. I know he doesn't like playing rookies.
They had Brendan Langley. They had Isaac Yiadom too. That was back-to-back years, I think, 2017 and 18 there with those two guys because they had Yiadom at the Senior Bowl when Vance was the coach.
So there was it was Yiadom because I was confused because I know Vic. I remember Yiadom played when Vic was here. So okay, there we go. Timeline's a little bit mixed up there, but also, I just think you have an affinity for guys that are veterans. And also it can come back to bite you. I know Sean Payton said to us earlier this week, he said, if we could go back, like if we're going to play the Browns again, we would definitely have changed it to where our best player is going to follow their best player for a majority of the time there. So I'm very curious to see what type of input Sean Payton has and who gets to play this week. And maybe even we could even see Damari Mathis maybe on the outside. I know he hasn't got a lot of playing time out there this year. He's been playing in the dime. They're calling him Dimari at this point in terms of that, where he's been contributing. So Denver's got some options as well. And also for Broncos Country, keep an eye on Brandon Jones Wednesday and Thursday, limited in practice with an abdomen designation, which is what the Broncos use for when there's a groin injury. They also label it as an abdomen injury there at that point. We'll see if he upgrades in Friday's practice to full participation. If he's limited, that makes him questionable. And if that's the case, Devin Key will get the start if Brandon Jones is unable to go there. So a lot to look forward to here. We'll have you covered here. Locked On Broncos every step of the way here. But one thing we're going to do is we preview Sunday's big game. We're going to take a look at why the Broncos secondary against the Colts wide receiver will be one of the bigger matchups that will help define the outcome of Sunday's game. We'll break that down and much more here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's Locked On Broncos podcast is brought to you by friends over there at Prize Picks. And if you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks, the easiest and the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Whether it's football, whether it's basketball, or any other of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. And here's why you need to check it out over inside the Prize Picks app, because you can now win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas, and they're offering 2 free picks in the month of December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks, they make it easy to cash out, and you can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. And they also offer now Venmo, which makes cash out and deposits even easier for you inside of the Prize Picks app. And you can look at a wide variety of different matchups this week. I'm going to look at Cortland Sutton to go for more than 70 yards receiving against the Colts, and for Bo Nix to throw for more than 225 yards. It's quick, it's simple, and it's so much fun to challenge myself and my friends inside of Prize Picks. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks, run your game. Today's episode show is also brought to you by our friends over there at Omaha Steaks, and nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite, and right now you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with promo code NFL at checkout. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks, they have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites like burgers, steaks, and so much more. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code NFL at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. Minimum purchase may apply. Omaha.
The Denver Broncos offensive line is extremely highly paid, but are they going to be able to road grade against the Indianapolis Colts? Get that run game going. That, along with the secondary matching up against a stellar group of wide receivers for the Colts and more. Cody and I are going to break down some key matchups as we look at the script for this game, the Broncos versus the Colts, with big-time playoff implications. Broncos Country, thanks so much for rocking with us every single day here at Locked On Broncos. Cody and I appreciate you so much for making us the first listen of your day every single day, and hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. We really appreciate you for doing so. Cody, let's talk about some of the matchups that are going to define this game, because, you know, you look at the season as a whole for the Denver Broncos. Obviously, there's things that coming out of the bye, like we want to see certain things be better, but also we have the mixture of like, okay, we reflect on the season that has been in terms of what's kind of been an overarching weakness for the Broncos. And then we have the recency of that Cleveland game. That's kind of, you know, it gets, you know, get a little fearful about some things maybe repeating themselves here. Let's break down some of the key matchups in this game, some of the things that are going to define this matchup. And really, we can start with the secondary against the wide receivers, keeping in theme the Broncos secondary down at least one guy, Riley Moss most likely, against a receiving group for the Colts that has the target share. Top 4 guys are all wide receivers. This is a very talented, dynamic group that they're bringing to Denver.
Yeah, it is. And look, they're fully healthy now with Josh Downs being a full participant in practice throughout this week. I know the bye week did wonders for him. And look, he is their chain mover. Anytime you need a big play, and this is something we talked about. I was on Broncos Country tonight. I was hosting it with Nick Ferguson the other day. We brought on Stephen Holder of ESPN. He's their Colts insider. And he said that's the one thing that they've been kind of missing since he's been out, is the fact that anytime you need a big play, it's going to him. You need a first down, it's going to him. He's their chain mover inside of that offense. But then you also factor in Alec Pierce right now, who's leading the team in receiving yards. I think he's at 645 yards. He's got 5 touchdowns on the year. But what stands out is what his yards per catch attempt is at this point. It's 22.24. So it is downfield. It is those big plays. Anytime they've needed that, he's become that guy for them a little bit with Josh Downs being out there. Oh, and guess what? There's Michael Pittman Jr., as we all know, is a very talented receiver here. He, throughout the season, has been dealing with a little bit of a back injury, and the general vibe coming out of the bye week is that his back is starting to feel actually a lot better. And so now you have a fully healthy wide receiver trio. And look, these wide receivers combined are way better than anything the Cleveland Browns had. Look, Cleveland obviously had Jerry Jeudy, who's their top guy there. Elijah Moore is obviously a weapon. But when you look at, I think, the overall competitiveness, explosiveness, these 3 wide receivers for Indy definitely can hurt the Broncos. And I think there's this general fear, right? Like after we watched that Monday night game and you see what happened defensively, like Denver just couldn't get a stop through the air and had nothing to do with Pat Surtain. It was away from him. I think everyone's like, wow, okay, now you're facing a better receiving core here. There's worry and there's a fear that Denver is going to be in trouble here. And look, I think we've had some people here this week saying, why are you guys acting like the Colts are a juggernaut? It's like, no, we have to be like, for us to do our job responsibly, we have to acknowledge that, hey, while the Colts are 6-7, they still have the ability to come in and make some big plays. You can't overlook them because of their record, because of some of the inconsistencies that they have. Their personnel is pretty good. And to be honest with you, Sayre, it is, in my opinion, how the Broncos respond in this game. If they can limit the explosives in the passing game, I think that Denver's got a great chance to win this game. That's why I think that the secondary against their receivers is going to define this matchup. Now, we don't know who's going to match up on who yet. I think if it's a third down situation, you need a first down. I think you put Pat Surtain on Josh Downs. I think you put him on Alec Pierce. I don't know how it's going to work. I'm very curious to see how that's going to be the case. But that's not the only side that will define this outcome. We've talked about it. The Broncos run game, which has struggled all year. They're facing a run defense that has struggled mightily this season.
This is an area that the Broncos can absolutely exploit for the Colts. I mean, I was talking about it with Jake Arthur, the co-host of Locked On Colts over there, Cody, a couple days ago. And we were talking about the fact that, man, it's really an issue of tackling at the second and the first and second levels of defense for the Colts. Like he was talking about, that's why Nick Cross, who, by the way, Nick Cross was acquired in a trade with the Broncos on during the 2022 draft, I believe, very interestingly enough. And so watch for him, because if he's racking up tackles in this game, it likely means that the Broncos are getting to the third level of the defense. And that's been the theme for the Colts this year. So it's not like the Broncos pass defense, which just gave up nearly 500 yards against the Browns. And it's like, oh my gosh, are they going to give up 500 again? This is the 31st ranked run defense in the NFL over a large sample size here. So this is where the Broncos offensive line, which now has 3 guys. I didn't get a chance to chat with you about this on the show, Cody, because I was not home, but the third guy now, Garrett Bowles, with over $80 million in total money on his contract. You expect an offensive line that's this highly compensated to go in and impose its will. And I think that's what they have to do. You've got to start taking this personally. Why is everybody talking so negatively about Javonte Williams? Why is everybody talking so negatively, except for some people, about the running game, right? I think it's something the offensive line has to take personal. And this has to be like that Saints game earlier this year, where you're like, hey, we're going to take this into our own hands, and we're going to make sure that we can run all over these guys, because that's what teams have been doing all year.
It's just so weird to me that a defense that has guys like DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, Zaire Franklin, Julian Blackmon, Kenny Moore are struggling at the way that they are in terms of stopping the run. I mean, that to me is just a weird statistic there. So we'll see if the Broncos, and I think, Broncos country wants to see this, and I certainly want to. I know you do as well. If this is a really bad run D, run the ball, get it going. Like, I think it would be a little more concerning if Denver's facing this really bad run defense and they can't get the run game going. It presents a valid concern about the offense and the sustainability, I think, of them going forward. So that's going to be something we're going to have to revisit. But that'll be a big key this week. And I also think we can also retouch on this as well. I think Anthony Richardson, you have to account for him. Look, erratic as a passer, but man, he can and he will more than likely, hopefully not against Denver, but he has all season. He's connected on some deep shots downfield. That's the one play he seems to hit. It's either boom or bust when it comes to him in that regard. But because of how they're using him now in design runs on short yardage situations, you have to account for Jonathan Taylor and him at that point. This is going to be, I think, probably one of the bigger challenges here for Denver's defense is, hey, short yardage, how do you stop a guy that big from falling forward and getting the first down? You're going to have to bring a group tackling effort here. That's going to be another matchup I think is going to define the outcome of Sunday's game at Empire Field, Mile High, 2:25 p.m. Mountain Time kickoff on CBS. It's a big game here for the Broncos, and some are coining it, and I would even say it's fair to say it. This is the biggest game for the Broncos in 5 or 6 years because the stakes for them are very high considering where they're at. And the Colts aren't going to be an easy opponent. They're going to be a tough one. They're going to fight. It's going to be a battle here at Empire Field. We're excited about it as well. But we are going to get into a portion of our show. We're going to share our bold predictions. Well, if the Broncos are facing a really bad run defense, is it so bold to say that one Broncos running back is going to have a big game? We'll talk about that and much more here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's Locked On Broncos podcast is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel. And as you all know, at FanDuel, they are America's #1 sportsbook, and they want you to get ready to tackle Week 15 of the NFL season, particularly here this weekend, as the Denver Broncos will host the Indianapolis Colts in a big-time AFC matchup that has so much at stake for the Broncos' postseason playoff aspirations here. The Broncos, they were early on in the week 4.5-point favorites, but now that line has moved to 3.5 points on FanDuel, 3.5-point home favorites. And with FanDuel, you can get in and get a big return right now because new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So if you think the Broncos are going to win outright on the money line, if you sign up as a new customer and you place a $5 bet and it wins, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets here today. And FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Jumping into the fourth quarter action on today's episode of the show, we're going to dive into our bold predictions. And as always, Broncos Country, we want to hear your bold predictions for Sunday's game. It can be a team-related prediction or it could be a player-specific related bold prediction, but make it bold. Don't make it too crazy, but make it bold where it's like, you know what? That might be a surprise if it happens, but it could happen. That's exactly what we're going to do here on today's episode show. So thanks once again to all the everydayers and the first listeners out there in Broncos Country. Sayre, my friend, I kind of love that we brought back bold predictions here because it gives us a chance to look at the game and say, all right, what is something that would seem a little crazy to say, not like outlandish, but it's like if it happened, it would be a really good thing here for the Broncos. When we look at it, where are you going here? If you had to give a bold prediction for Sunday's game, something that could happen, but I think would also surprise a lot of people, where are you landing here with yours?
Yeah, here's a bold prediction for this game against the Colts. I'm going to say Troy Franklin has a 100-yard receiving game. I know we've been talking about the running game, getting that going. But look, we're manifesting positivity with bold predictions. We're manifesting things that we want to see happen, right? That's what faith is, Cody. That's what it is. It's believing in the things that are not yet seen, right? We haven't yet seen Troy Franklin go off in a game. We've talked about it over and over on this show. Like, eventually Bo Nix and Troy Franklin are going to hook up for a deep ball like they did at Oregon. Eventually it's going to just click and things are just going to start being there for him. I think that we're really close. I know that we're seeing the Broncos take these shots almost at least one per week. I think Troy Franklin, this is the game, Cody, that he's going to go off. He's going to get a little hot. He's going to get a full head of steam going. I'm saying his first 100-yard receiving game here against the Colts. We want to manifest it. We want to see it happen. And I'm hoping that it comes in a big win here for the Denver Broncos.
I like that. Now I got to ask you here, because 100 yards could be achieved several different ways, right? It could be, a handful of catches, 6, 7, or 8, or it could be, a couple catches, but then one really big one. Is he going to have a big pass play in this one?
I think so. I think that's what we're
looking
at here. How many
yards? If you had to give a bold prediction for how many yards on the deep ball, what's it going to be?
Let's say 40 plus. Let's say a 40 plus yard play that, maybe the Broncos take a shot from midfield, or maybe it's, just on the other side of midfield. I think there's going to be one play in this game, at least, that Troy has just a huge catch and run and goes off. It could be a screenplay. It could be a deep shot. I don't know what it's going to be, but I think, Cody, that's what I'm manifesting. It's going to start with something like that. And then the Broncos are just going to say, oh, we got to feed this guy. So they're going to start doing that. That's kind of how it works, right? You get one big play, then all of a sudden the offense is like, hey, we got to get this guy the ball. And I think that's what they're going to do for Troy Franklin, because the Colts are going to be focused on stopping Courtland Sutton. He's the main guy. So they're going to put all their guys on him. Troy Franklin, time to step up.
I'm excited. I like that. I think that's a bold prediction. I'm going to stay on the trend of the offensive side, then we'll get to some defensive bold predictions here. But my offensive bold prediction here is that Jaleel McLaughlin's going to have a big game, which, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to be surprised if that happens, but I think my bold prediction is that he will have a run in this game that'll be 40-plus yards. He's going to break off a big-time explosive run. I'm going to go 40 to 60 yards here. It could be a 40 to 60-yard touchdown. I think that's going to be my bold prediction here. And all of a sudden, then it might jumpstart the run game, right? You're facing the worst run D in the NFL. You better break a big one against them. I think Jaleel McLaughlin is the one guy that's in a better position to break one. I was going to lean Audric Esme. It's like Audric Esme is going to break off like a 40-plus yard run. Possible, but I think Jaleel McLaughlin, when we look at it, is probably the more likely one to do that. And because the run game hasn't been great this season, everyone's like, oh, hey, 40-plus yards, Cody. That's bold. We could see that happening, and hopefully that is the case here on Sunday. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball now. Obviously, look, I think that the general theme this week is that the Broncos have a lot of respect for the Colts offense, despite their inconsistencies in a consistent passing game. But the deep shots are there. The weapons are there. In your opinion, if you had to give a bold prediction here for Denver defensively, what is it going to be? Player or team related?
Well, you know what? It's one of those things that's like, okay, where do you go with this? Because is it an individual player? Like, I think here's what I'm going to say, Cody. The Mile High Magic is going to be absolutely doing its thing in this game, right? In a playoff run that the Broncos are in, you can kind of always tell, like, are they're not necessarily a team of destiny, but like, sometimes fortune favors, certain teams in certain situations. Like back in 2015, we saw it happen all the time. I'm going to say the Mile High Magic is Mile High Magicking in this game, and the Broncos are going to get 4 turnovers from the Colts. I mean, I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be interception, fumbles, whatnot. I know that's a lot to predict there. 4 turnovers is a lot. But you know what? The Mile High Magic there's something about it. And a game like this where you're kind of like, man, it feels like the Colts could come in and pull off the upset. How about the Mile High Magic does its thing? Broncos defense gets 4 turnovers in this game.
If Denver's defense gets 4 turnovers in this game, this should be a blowout. If that does happen. I like that. Now, my question would be, to take it one step further, are any of those turnovers going to go for a score?
Hey, I mean, why not? Right? Why stop there? We had 2 pick sixes in the last game. Like, that would have been a bold prediction that I think people would have been like, I don't know. You get 2 pick sixes in one game. How about this game? We get a scoop and score, from the Broncos. Yeah, at least a scoop and score.
Okay. All right. I can see that. For me, I think I'm going to kind of go a little two-sided one here. I think Nik Bonitto, he's going to have 2 or more sacks in this game here. He's going to take the lead in overall sacks, and he's going to put himself firmly in the driver's seat of Defensive Player of the Year. One of those being a strip sack, I think, is going to be the case. And then let's just say if it's going to be Kris Abrams-Draine that gets the start, he's going to get targeted. I'm going to predict that Kris Abrams-Draine, he gets a pick 6 in this game if he gets to start. That's going really bold here. Broncos Country, as always, we want to hear from you on your bold predictions. Make it fun. Make it somewhat realistic, but also a little crazy at the same time. It's all designed to be fun here, but obviously the game will be played on Sunday. We'll see if the Broncos can answer the bell, because this is the biggest game for this team in the last 5 to 6 years. A win not only gives them a winning season, but makes their playoff chances even more likely with 3 games remaining in a short week turnaround against the Los Angeles Chargers on Thursday Night Football. So this is the biggest game of the year right now for the Broncos. And with that said, that'll wrap up today's episode of the show. Broncos Country, we appreciate you so much. All the everydayers, all the first listeners out there, thank you so much for making this show exactly what it is. Make sure you engage with other members in the Broncos Country community as well. And just know we have you covered. If you're not an everydayer just yet, we have you covered every single day, legitimately every day, all year long. For all you need to know about the Denver Broncos, we got you covered. Make us your one-stop shop here if you want what's up to date here with the Mile High City. So with that said, Broncos Country, we'll see you on Sunday following the Broncos-Colts game. Is Denver going to the playoffs? Hey, we'll find out after Sunday here. Broncos Country, appreciate you. We'll see you then.